Good morning to everyone in Sweden and good afternoon to those of you joining us from India for the last of our sessions on sustainability dialogues for 2022. SIBC, together with the Chamber of Commerce in India and the Embassy of India in Sweden, started the dialogue when it was clear industry plays a strong role and is a critical stakeholder to making our global goals a reality. Over the last 12 months, we've had conversations about circular economy, ESG, energy transition, and many, many more. Today, we end our dialogues for this year in our grand finale to talk about what has been done on the ground in India through the mapping study that the Chamber has done together with Team Sweden India and their partners in India as well, Swedish companies. With this, I'm very happy to hand over to Sara Larsson, the head of the Chamber in India, to take us through this green journey. Sara, over to you.
Thank you very much, Artie, and it's great to be here. Glad so many have joined us, friends from India and friends from Sweden. And thank you for the introduction, Artie. I'm looking forward to present this study to you all, and we will talk a little bit about why we did it, of course, and some of the key data points maybe from it, but it's all looking at what Swedish companies are doing when it comes to environmental impact or when it comes to green transition in India. In order to do this, I just don't want to give you a presentation of facts and figures, but I've asked some of my friends to join to exemplify and put a bit of pictures and stories behind the data we have in the study. So I'm very happy to introduce to you my fellow presenters or my friends here, Berit Lindholm, who is the CEO of the Swedish Institute of Quality, SIQ, and she's also a board member of Bluefish Pharmaceuticals. And Berit, you have also been the CEO of Bluefish, the global CEO of Bluefish for 5 years, and also lived and worked in India for several years. And you are also, Berit is also a member of the board of directors of the Swedish Chamber of Commerce in India. So thank you so much, Berit, for being with us from Stockholm today. And from India, we have also Cecilia Oskarsson, Trade Commissioner to India from Sweden and Head of Business Sweden in India. And Cecilia, as Berit, has also a long history with India and lived and worked here for several years and in different capacities as well. So Cecilia, very happy that you are joining us as well. And also Obidit Chakraborty, or also more known to us as OC, and we'll go under that name today. He's a general manager of EHH Sustainability at Sandvik Coromant in Pune. And OC has 28 years of experience with Sandvik and working extensively with the operations management, sustainability, and on the ground initiatives when it comes to Sandvik's work of becoming a green factory and a green site. And we also have Kamlesh Koilia with us, who is the sustainability manager at Tetra Pak and for Tetra Pak South Asia market, actually, and focusing on the collection of cartons, especially for Tetra Pak and recycling ecosystem, but also a lot of other initiatives that Tetra Pak is doing. So I'm very happy to have you with me today, and we will hear from you during the presentation as we go through the study. There's possibilities to ask questions for those of you that are here and participating. Ask you to please put them in the chat, and we will pick up on questions after the presentation is done. It might be the easiest, also because I'm slightly challenged when it comes to managing too many things at the same time. So we do it that way. But okay, let's start with the sustainability mapping, as we call it, or what the report now is called a green journey, because that's what we are on, a green journey to change what we are doing and how we are doing things in our operations and in our factories, and also our mindsets and the way we are stewarding the environment around us. So we started to discuss, and just to give you a short background, we started to discuss in Team Sweden a couple of years back, saying that we want to know what are companies, actually Swedish companies in India, doing on the ground. What are their activities? How are they taking sustainability forward in operations, facilities, value chain, in engagement in the ecosystem around with different stakeholders, and working with consumers, for example, or customers and suppliers. We also wanted to identify, if possible, a baseline of saying, where are we at? What are we actually doing? How much energy are we, green energy are we producing? How much water are we conserving? How many trees are we planting? And these numbers we will come back to later on. And we also wanted to identify opportunities that were there in the group, knowing that there's a lot of initiatives happening and lots of good work being done. So we wanted to highlight that and bring that to the fore. And we also wanted to see if the challenges that we share that might be related to a local area, it might be related to locality where you are, or on a policy level, or other issues that are there. So these were the kind of the background of why we wanted to do this study. And as Arti was saying, we did this together in Team Sweden, with which is the Embassy of Sweden in India, with the Consulate General in Mumbai, Business Sweden, and of course us then, the Chamber. And let me see now if I can change slide. Here we go. So this study, 49 Swedish companies based in India participated. And 35% of them are in the engineering sector, what we call in industrial products. 67% are in the manufacturing in India, in one or several sites across the country, and they are spread around. So we also did this in two phases, actually, this study. We started with companies in Maharashtra and Gujarat, to then move on to companies in the rest of India. But of course, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Delhi NCR, but also Tamil Nadu and Hyderabad are the main areas where Swedish companies are operating today in the country. And as if you recognize the brands, of course, you see that there are different sectors and different type of operations also represented here. So we looked at some key areas, which we want to highlight here today, or 6 of them actually. Goals and governance of how are we driving our green transition, how are we working with that, and what kind of framework are we holding on to. Energy and climate change, water and wastewater, materials and waste, biodiversity, and then also ecosystem, the stakeholder engagement and so forth. And we will give you a little bit of an idea of each one of these areas as we move on. So starting off with looking at targets, and we thought this is an important area to look at, saying how are we know the companies have, of course, global targets, but are we also localizing our targets? Are we contextualizing them to where we are? And that is a very important, I think, factor in order to also to get effective where you are. And as you can see here, it's just a diagram of the different type of targets that the company have set, if they're local and global. And you can see, of course, in energy reduction, that has a lot to do, and renewable energy has a lot to do with the global goals. Why water, since water is a scarcity and scarce resource in India, is something that many companies have also set a higher target or more local, bigger local targets to address, because that's the reality around them. So I would now like to then throw over looking at this picture, and also maybe also at the next one, which is the policy focus areas that we have. The companies are looking at, where do we set our policies? What are we working with? Of course, starting with carbon. And this is just an illustration of which areas that companies are focusing on and addressing in their policies. But I would like to open the floor for Berit at this stage and just ask, Berit, as a global CEO for Bluefish Pharma. Can you share a little bit, in this context, what was your strategy for driving sustainability from global to local? And what are some of the key factors that you see to not only successful implementation, but a constant improvement in this area?
Yes, I'm happy to try to answer that question, Sara. I think first, as a teaser for all employees, we actually used the UN sustainability goals, which I think engaged offices in all locations. We discussed what can we do in the office, what can we do with our suppliers, what can we do at home. And then it was quite easy to identify those people who were really engaged in this and had extra questions or extra engagement. And then they were identified to lead or be a part of the rest of the implementation. So I would say it was fairly easy because I think we have a global engagement across the globe about environment. Everyone is worried. But we also decided to use global standards across. So it's the same standards, it's the same measurements, no matter which country we're in. So I would say that was the engaging factor. And the nice thing that we saw was that when we talked about ethics in context of sustainability, work ethics or employment ethics, that was where our contractors improved the most. There were factors they hadn't thought about, but were happy that we shared. And I felt that everyone was engaged and wanted to improve. So it was fairly easy, I would say.
Thanks, Berit. And this, of course, is a work that continues after your time there as well, and the Bluefish is very committed to. OC, over to you. And I know, we said you've been working in Sandvik for 28 years and have your history there, work experience. You are working a lot with, I know, contextualizing global goals to the local context. Can you share, an example of this process, and how would you say that this is impacting ownership within your organization? What have you seen?
Yes, Sara. I mean, when you spoke about the contextualization of the whole project for sustainability at Pune, it all cascades down from the UN sustainability goals that Sandvik has decided to prioritize. And based on that, we have our 2030 goals chartered, which is called as the SHIFT, which talks about going for renewable energy, halving our CO2 emissions, and then also going to 90% circularity. So based upon those shift targets, we derive upon our strategy goals, which for us is about for 2025 now already. And at the center of the strategy goals, it lies the people, profit, and performance. So all these three put together and planet. Once all these three are there together, then it cascades down to the objectives for the units which are at different places across the world. So we, being the subsidiary for Sandvik Coromant, we get these targets up from the EHS global team. And based upon those targets, we decide upon how locally we can implement them. I mean, one good example of interaction, I would say, is the Green Factory concept, which we are very closely following up. It's a template which has been designed by Sandvik Coromant, and that template is being used as an assessment tool across the different units across the world. And it gives us a real good insight into how we should be working closely as one Sandvik family. And that's one of the major examples which we do an assessment on a yearly basis. And as part of the ownership, if you ask me, it's deeply woven within our KPIs. So it is not only production KPIs that we look at, but also these sustainability goal KPIs that we also imbibe within our yearly annual performances. And that helps us give us a good linkage between our KPIs to the global initiatives that Sandvik is taking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Osi. And audience, please, if you have questions in this area, please just put them in the chat for later discussion. Moving on then, looking at energy and climate, which of course is an important area. We saw that in this study that 50%, so half of the companies, reports that they are making technological or process changes to reduce their energy consumption in different ways in the production and in their sites and in their offices. 45% today use renewable energy sources, and 10 have already implemented the green PPAs or similar instruments to increase their renewable energy on their sites. And 80%, so not all, but 80% have carbon emissions target, and close to half have committed to being carbon neutral or carbon positive at different stages during the year or in the future. So Kamlesh here, coming to you now, because Tetra Pak's facility in Chakan, in Pune, just a couple of days back, you were actually honored with the highest rated Green Building Platinum Award by CII, the Indian Green Building Council. So congratulations to that. And that is given to organizations that have embraced sustainable goals and have the potential to inspire others. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Tetra Pak's continuous improvement strategy and environment actions to advance net zero in India?
Absolutely, thank you, Sara, for recognizing our efforts. It is, I think, it's a continuous journey, and even in the previous assessment as well, we had received the Platinum Award. So it just goes to that we are on this journey continuously. Now, what I would say, you mentioned something about continuous improvement efforts. Certainly, what I would say is, and what our company is looking at is net zero, right? Climate change and net zero. We're looking at it systematically across our entire engagement with the society, starting with our strategy, then what kind of products and services we are putting out, and what at our operational level we can do. And also the biggest piece of the chunk is the value chain. Now globally we have targets across all these metrics. So we have targets for reducing our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions by 2030, becoming net zero in our value chain by 2050. That's a very ambitious target which we set ourselves, and even further going forward to science-based targets, limiting the global emissions, the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees C. So that is also a very ambitious target for us in the value chain. Now, what does it mean? Ultimately, these global targets, how do we contextualize them locally? Some important steps which we take upstream is to work with our base suppliers, because ultimately we can do operationally so much. We want our value chain to also collaborate. We are working with our base suppliers to, for help them get on board with the 1.5 degrees C target and help them reduce their emissions, see strategically where we can align with them. And now that's the upstream side. And then within our own operations, we are looking at, in India specifically, we have installed renewable energy, solar panels, around 3 megawatt power is our capacity today, but we still have a target to go 100% renewable energy, and that is across all factories, including the factory in Chakan. And so that is one effort which we are doing and which will continue to do so. One interesting fact I think I would say is, the kind of product and service which we are out with the customers, starting with our product. It's all about our reducing the footprint, climate footprint, using our products which we serve to the customers, starting with the carton as a package, which is a paper-based carton having 70% renewable content. And further, what we are doing continuously is to innovating the product structure. And by doing R&D, let's say removing other fossil-based content, like removing aluminium and replacing it with a fiber-based barrier. We have done some product trials in different markets. So globally, you will see these developments on products, making our core products more sustainable, and in helping the customers also reduce emissions. So that is what our goal is, to look at it from the value chain perspective and how we can do that. And just one small example, regarding services. We also supply a lot of processing equipment. So our customers use our equipment to package their products. So we recently supplied 3 plants to our dairy beverage customer. With that particular operational efficiency, they are actually going to save 3 million liters of water by using the technology, which helps them save more water and save more energy, on 67% energy efficient. And so the idea is that we should look at it from the entire value chain perspective, upstream, our own operations, as well as downstream.
Thank you, Kamlesh. I was also thinking in this, as I said in the beginning, when we have, 67% of the companies here are manufacturing companies were part of the study, but also companies that just have offices or limited distribution and so forth. It's not just manufacturing. And Berit, I'm coming back to you because so it's one thing when you have a factory, and as Kamlesh was saying, you implemented, solar panel set up on your roof and generating your energy. When you don't have your own office and you're renting offices and building, I know that when you Bluefish moved into your new location, this was a major question for you, isn't it, to go into or how you could address the environmental concerns through that. So how did the environment play into your choices of new office? And also maybe touching and a follow-up on that, saying, how has the conversation as you see it, Berit, changed in India over the years on this particular area?
Okay, yes. I mean, it was a strategic choice when we moved office. We wanted a green building, a thorough green building, I would say, because I think there's more and more green buildings coming up, but you kind of have to scrutinize the concept. Is it really thorough? And to us, it meant that they should have good ethics when they were building the building for the workers and from safety perspective, etc. And which kind of materials do they use to make sure that they harvest water. There are solar panels. The building where that Bluefish are sitting in is designed so that you need minimal lighting, minimal AC to make sure you reduce. But of course, then we also engage with the community in the building. So we do plugging around, which is picking litter and jogging. We're not jogging, but making sure we keep it nice and tidy together, reacting together on things that we think is important to drive. And we have a wonderful landlord who buys the green concept fully and is so engaged. So it's a lot of collaboration between the tenants as well around recycling and how to use the facility in the best way. But I think it's becoming more and more common to think this way. I mean, energy prices are going up and people are more aware of water consumption. So it's easier and easier to find a landlord that has built a green building. But I think you should scrutinize the concept. It's not just about harvesting water for the garden. It's a lot more than that. So it's important to be an active tenant as well.
I appreciate that. That is very true as well. Thank you, Berit. So let's move on. And you started to talk about water. So, water was supposed to be our next topic, but we go first to materials and waste, which is, of course, and circularity. And this is an important question, of course, for the Swedish companies, and also an area where we might find that it's difficult to really break through in being fully circular. And as you can see from the facts or the stats here, that more than half procure recycled materials for use in their operations in different ways. And 67% of dry waste is diverted from landfill. And a lot of the organic waste is also composted and used. And the extended producer responsibility is something that many also have to work with, and 11 of the companies are actively doing that. And I'm coming back to Kamlesh here on this area, because of course, Tetra Pak is have worked a lot with the extended producer responsibility guidelines, and that has been developed during the years. And there was also a new, in February this year, the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change notified the guidelines on this when it comes to plastic packaging and under plastic waste management rules. And they came in effect the 1st of July. I know that, this has played an impact on your operations and so forth. So can you, speak on that? How is this, and what are you doing within this area when it comes to in your production, especially?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think you're spot on, Sara, on the recycling aspect. and how the Tetra Pak has been a part of this journey, almost for 18 years now. What I have personally witnessed is that EPR as a concept has taken shape from many years. Now it has become a mandatory rule, as you mentioned earlier this year in February. But one thing which I would want to point out is that we have been at Tetra Pak doing voluntary EPR efforts for the last 18 years. And so I would say, in a sense, that we have been ready for quite some time, and we are poised to meet the new changes and new regulation. I think I would personally say that this is a very good step, a great initiative by the government to really put everyone in the industry as well as the municipal infrastructure at task, and essentially to bring that infrastructure around. This should clearly push for more infrastructure on waste management. And now you specifically mentioned on the production side. So because we have been doing the efforts voluntarily and building that ecosystem, so as our own operations wise, I think we are very much ahead of the curve, and having met our targets. Even today we are meeting 100% of our own targets. But I think for us it is not what we do within our own operational boundaries. It is with the value chain what we can do. We work with many customers, and our extended value chain help them come on board on terms of creating the awareness on waste management, because it is not just one aspect. You need to address many aspects. As you mentioned, it's a very difficult to break, I would say, area which requires I would say the stars to align from multiple places. So that is what we want to do. We want to continue on this journey, and building the ecosystem, and helping our other customers and other partners in the value chain also meet their targets and move from compliance mindset to a purpose mindset, whether they not just follow some tick boxes, but rather think about how true infrastructure can be developed. This means working with the policymakers as well as the municipal authorities, building their infrastructure. I think collaboration is what is needed in this space, and that is what we want working for.
Thanks, Kamlesh. And I know you're working a lot with that, and I added this picture, which is Tetra Pak benches or school tables for classrooms made out of Tetra Pak bottles or packages, isn't it? And where you have also developed the supplier to make these and finding the way of making different kind of products out of your recycled material.
Absolutely, yes.
Here we go. Thanks, Kamlesh. Then now we come to the water issue, which is it's an important one, of course. And 65% of the companies in the study operate in water-stressed areas in India. There is a recent study that come out from Niti Aayog, which is a kind of a think tank and policy maker in India, that are talking about 21 cities, major cities that are in the high risk zone of becoming, have a total scarcity of water in a few years. So this is an area where we have to all work hard, and companies are doing as well. So half of the companies in the study have installed rainwater harvesting systems, and also measure how much is also harvested. And many have also these kind of systems where you put wastewater, clean it, and put it back into the production operations, or use it in different ways at your facilities. And 78% have, as it says, implemented different water conservation initiatives. And OC, your production facility, Sandvik Coromant, is in Pune, which is one of these cities that have scarcity of water. And what are you doing in this area? And I'm asking a leading question because we were just there and visited your new sewage treatment plant, for example.
Yes, Sara, it excites me to tell you about. It really excites me to tell you more about it, because it's really good that you've already visited the site and seen actually what we are doing. And as you are aware that we are a manufacturing unit, and we use a lot of chemicals and gases, and we do generate a lot of effluent from our operations. But as we are under the water scarce zone, we also have to have innovative ideas of using that water back into the process. So ideally what we do is we have our CETP plant here where we mix our domestic effluent and our industrial effluent, which is a very highly concentrated sulfates and chlorides water. And that mixed together, we kind of dilute it, and to the extent that it can be used for gardening purpose. So within our site, which is about 19 acres of land, 33% of that is almost about garden. And in that garden, all the plants, they are actually using the water which is from the CETP plant that we have at site here. And going forward, what we have done is we have also we have installed a ZLD plant, that is a zero liquid discharge plant. So this water is further purified and it is put back into the operation so that it can be used for the process. So our intake of water from the corporation actually goes down. And that is going to help us get the real circularity in motion and see that we do not take more and more water from the government authorities, whereas we try to use more of it by recycling within our site here. And finally, whatever water is left out, we try to use that water for the flushing purposes in the toilets, so that we do not let go of that little water which is diluted from the process of combining the CETP and the ZLD. We use it for the washrooms, not of course the wash basins, of course, but for the for the toilets per se. And going forward, I mean, now we have also started to show our visitors the level of purity that the water that we are purifying through the ZLD process, and that's as much equally pure like drinking water. And it's not far that you already know that there are some countries in the world who are actually using sewage water for drinking purposes. I mean, whatever I have read through is about Singapore, and there is some states in the United States as well. But then we have to have the psychology of recycling all the water that we are using for the process back into the process. And that is how our real circularity initiatives will be met. And our psychology will be developed more and more towards, being more with nature, and that ecosystem which we talk about, we really live in terms of our manufacturing operations aligning with the sustainability goals as well.
Thank you, Osi. And I recommend everyone that it's going to Pune to connect with Osi and come and visit these sites or his site to see what they have done. I want to now turn over to Cecilia and call you in, because as we are on the theme of water, I know you in Business Sweden, of course, are working with sustainability as a key subject or topic, of course, and you've been running Sustainability by Sweden, a program for the last 10 years. So it's 10 years, actually, jubilee this year. And part of that is the Innovators Accelerator program, where you introduce new green technology from Sweden into India, which is also part of this, of how can we make our world more sustainable. And what, just give us a little bit of the future as well, and inspire here with some of the innovation. What are some of the solutions that you have at hand in this program that you can, that can support companies and others as well with an increased water conservation and make sure that we save more of this important resource. So Cecilia, over to you.
Yes, let me first just clarify a few things. Sustainability by Sweden, that's our ecosystem in which all our players here at Team Sweden in India work under. That's all what we do under sustainability. ISIA, or the India-Sweden Innovation Accelerator program, that we are running together with the Energy Agency and CII. That has been going on for 10 years. And that program is specifically for energy efficiency collaboration, but also for promoting green energy. And in this program, during this last decade, we have facilitated entry of no less than 60 Swedish SME within the area of energy into India. And it's more than 200 different projects that are ongoing. And out of those 60 SMEs, 40 are actually present today in India. So just to give you a few examples, when it comes to water, we can talk about Altered, but also Granule Disc, who has really helped Indian companies to save more than millions of gallons of water through their water saving solutions. And Granule Disc, they have a very efficient dishwasher that is actually used right now by Taj hotels. We can also mention AquaQ, which is a very innovative company providing water treatment solutions. And they are right now working with some of the leading pharma companies here in India, support them with continuing monitoring of water discharge from the plants. We can maybe also mention Spaudi, who has a energy saving watering system. And I do want to highlight that all of these solutions you can actually see live here in our office at Business Sweden, where Sara and the Chamber is also based. So if you're interested, we have our own sustainability showroom, and we would gladly take you through. We also have some of Tetra Pak's beautiful benches here in our office from now on.
We do. I was wondering if I was going to sit on one of them to do this seminar actually. But thank you, Cecilia. And I think that's is an important factor that you're speaking about, of introducing new technology also. That is contextualized, that you contextualize here to see to the situation that is in India. So thank you. Then we move over to biodiversity. And to be honest, if the Swedish companies are doing very well in a lot of when it comes to materials and waste, when it comes to energy and water and so forth, and we see that through the study as well, the Swedish companies are in the lead and in the forefront in many ways of both innovation and implementation. Biodiversity might be one of those areas where we are not that good, or not, where focus is not that high. And I think we saw that as well when we look at policies and goals. But companies operate in, in areas and in sectors where they are exposed to high biodiversity loss, and both on high and medium risk. So this is an area we need to work with and be more and be active within. But when it comes to, we still see that 31 companies undertake afforestation activities, which is an important one, but it's also often limited into this area. But I want to call on OC again. And you see here a picture of his Miyawaki forest on their grounds in Pune. So tell us a little bit about that, OC.
Yes, sure, Sara. I mean, by virtue of the fact that biodiversity is a very complex, big word, and it encompasses a lot of ecosystems and species and humanity and mankind and all those things. But when we are in this manufacturing setup here in Pune, I mean, as I mentioned, that we have about 33% of our land, which is supposed to be dedicated to green land, apart from the manufacturing operations that we have aside, and all the initiatives that we have taken from the manufacturing side in terms of solar energy and the energy efficient pumps and equipments that we have to put. If we have to offset the carbon footprint, there is no other better way to have trees. And though we have limitation of space within our site here, this was one unique way which we thought could really help us really offset our carbon footprint in a large way. And this unique method that we adopted, which is called as a Miyawaki forest, is very, very different from the conventional method of planting trees, because in the conventional method, you have to have distance between two trees, at least a distance of about 3 feet, so that they can grow properly and their roots can kind of spread very nicely under the ground. But within this Miyawaki forest, what we can do is we can plant the trees as close as 6 inches to each other. Of course, we have to do a proper ground preparation before we really do this. And with this effort that we took, it will be very interesting for you all to know that across our site, we have about 650 different trees, which are ranging from 100 years old to many years now. But within this space of 3,000 square feet, we have been able to plant 932 trees. So that is really, really special. And what the picture that you see here is the present picture about a month back. And we had planted these in the month of April, when the height of these plants were almost about 6 to 9 inches. And today they have grown more than 15 feet height. So another specialty of this is that it is a self-sustaining ecosystem. I mean, you do not have to have human intervention like it happens for the other plants, where you have to nurture it with manure and you have to nurture it with other elements. But it is a self-sustaining model where the plants and the trees grow at a very, very high pace, and to the tune that whatever time a tree takes to grow for 100 years, this will grow within 10 years time. So this will definitely help us offset our CO2 also. After the third year, we will estimate that the CO2 will be about 25 tons of CO2 emission will be absorbed by these Miyawaki forests. So yes, it was a very unique thought, and because we have constraints of space within our site, we thought that this would be a very, very unique model to try. And the same has been extended by our CSR outside the company as well, where they have licensed up with our government agencies, and they have taken up a small garden area where they have tried to plant about 6,000 trees there. So the only way is, I mean, the best way to offset CO2 emissions is, of course, planting more trees. There are, of course, other ways as well, but this is what we thought would help in our endeavor for sustainability. And we're looking for more space where we can expand this.
Thanks, Osi. And I also know the companies have taken your contacts, or you've taken interest in this project as well, with other ones in Pune that have gardens. So thank you so much for that. So I said in the beginning that one of the reasons why we wanted to do this study is to see if we can, find a baseline and say, what are we actually doing today? What are we concretely saving, or when it comes to generating green energy? So this is a little bit of the data which we kind of collected. And we see that today, renewable energy amongst these 49 companies, about 30% of the electricity used by all is renewable. Some is generated by the companies or through the PPA agreements buying from the green grids and so forth. Trees have been planted across the country, often through CSR projects and so forth. And but we see, for example, on water, that we have a way to go to do more, to harvest more rainwater and to conserve more water. And we want to see now in Team Sweden, we're discussing and saying, how can we follow up on this? How can we track this over the years and see how we actually further improve and increase the ratio of both in terms of both water we conserve and energy we do and so forth. So this is one outcome of this study that gives an idea about where we are at as companies. We also did what we call the spider networks in those areas I've talked about, governance strategy, biodiversity, water, etc., a mapping of saying where are companies at in terms of then looking at different levels, from having nothing to implement and not working with it to working with it to a very high degree. And these, because that's also a way of visualizing where we are at and where we can do more, and where we can learn from one another, because that's really also one of the outcomes of this survey or this study of saying where, as I said, where are the good examples. We know there are a lot of things going on amongst the community in Business Sweden with their programs of new companies coming in, new technology and so forth, and where can we actually then further increase the speed of the green transition and continue on to be on this green journey that we are talking about, that is so important for us all. And to wrap up, and it's the last topic, just talk a little bit about the ecosystem that we have around us. And I don't mean the trees right now, but I mean the people and the other type of institutions and groups, the government, authorities, and so forth. And we know there are areas we need to work with. Just to show you quickly where we saw the companies say that this is areas where we see there's potential to unlock and where we need to work together. It could be with authorities, which we are doing, and putting in place also more focused collaboration around policy. It could be to work with our customers or our suppliers. It could work with how we see and understand procurement. What is the focus in procurement, for example? We know from a business climate survey that only about 25% of the customers in the public sector look at sustainability, look at these factors when they make a purchasing decision, and about 40% in the private sector. And this was figures 2 years back, so I think that has changed now. And there are also, as Kamlesh was talking about, a little bit of strength in the infrastructure when it comes to, for example, around waste management and so forth. And then the important question of sharing and building knowledge together. And I just wanted to touch upon one program that is one way. So we address this in this different way. Through the Chamber and the network of companies, we are running the Green Journey platform, which is all about learning and sharing best practices from one another. And Business Sweden is spearheading what is called the Green Transition Partnership. And I want Cecilia to speak a little bit about this because you have just launched it. We were in Mumbai last week, and it incorporates stakeholders of different kind, both the public, private, Indian and Swedish players. So just give us that example of how we together can work on furthering the green transition even more.
Yes, thank you, Sara. So going back to Sustainability by Sweden and the umbrella that we are working under here in India, one engine was the India-Sweden Innovation Accelerator Program for Swedish SMEs, especially in the energy sector. The other large engine that we are working with right now is India-Sweden Green Transition Partnership. And this really symbolizes that our two countries have a joint commitment to really promote exchange of carbon neutral business practices, but also solutions, and also how we can co-create localized innovations and share expertise and knowledge between our two countries related to green transition. And the partners being in this is, of course, whole Team Sweden. We also have leading energy Swedish agencies like Energy Agency, Vinnova, Stockholm Environment Institute. And from the Indian side, CII is our local partner. And when it comes to companies, we as of now have 6 leading Swedish companies: Absurtech, Alfa Laval, Aleima, Hitachi Energy, Craft Powercon, and SKF, who are part of this. We also have interest shown by Volvo and Sandvik to be our partner, together with Indian leading business houses. As of now, we have 4, and we have a couple of more wanting to sign up to be part of this. And we have also Indian Institute of Technologies being part of this whole platform. And what we are doing is really Sweden is, as we all know, a leader in the net zero journey. And Sweden is also a country who really wants to help other countries to excel on their net zero journey. And what we see here is that the Swedish companies can help India to really accelerate, but also quickly targets. And I would say, Sara, this is the basis for this. And we have identified 13 sectors which we see Sweden can definitely help India in. And it's all hard to abate sectors. Out of this, we have chosen 3 to start with. So last week, we had technical workshops within cement and iron and steel. And in a few weeks, we will also go on to the 3rd sector, which is then automotive. And this is a start. And let's see then how we take it next year. If depending on which companies sign up, we will maybe look into broaden the sectors that we work with, depending on what the needs and the wants from our Swedish companies.
Thank you, Cecilia. I will now stop sharing, and we just with this wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of the work that is happening here in India and in the space of India-Sweden relationship. The sustainability mapping, or a green journey, is available online, and I can ask my colleague Karan, maybe you could just share the link in the chat box if it's possible for people to download it and read more. And please reach out if you have questions. We have received some questions in the chat, and I understand that it's not possible to actually put questions in the open chat to everyone, so they've gone to me, all of them. So let me just then, because we have a few more minutes to go, so let's bring in the questions. Or actually, I will call upon Abhuti Umang. You have a question regarding life cycle for use of material, and I think Kamlesh might be the right one to respond to this. Because can I ask you to come online, Abhuti, or if it's Umang? Okay, he might have left, but the question was on how many times can we recycle the same material? Does it lose any properties after each recycle phase? Kamlesh, that might be for you.
So I think, yes, certainly that's a specific question. Now it also depends on the packaging format as well. On what type of material we are talking about. I'm just coming from a very packaging perspective, but in general, there are materials which can be used infinitely, and there are materials which can't be used infinitely. And then there is also the question of technology. And if there is the right technology which can be used to recycle the product, it can effectively be a closed loop system, wherein every time we use the material and then it gets recycled, it comes back into the same value chain. So it depends on the material, and it also depends on the type of technology used for recycling. I think that is what I would say.
Thank you, Kamlesh. I see Arti, why don't you come online? And I request everyone else that have questions, do put them in the chat box, or we then open after Arti, we'll open the floor for anyone to unmute and ask as well, or give comments. So Arti, over to you.
Yeah, no, I'll read the question. I wrote this after Kamlesh and Barrett had talked, and I thought what you were both saying was so important to pick up on, and all the speakers have been really, really interesting to listen to. But everyone's touched upon the need for mindset change, and this need to go from, and you said it really well, Kamlesh, from compliance to purpose. And Barrett, you touched upon going more than, one factor or one KPI is not enough to understand sustainability. 360 perspective, and it is so critical when it comes to Sweden-India corridor. So I wanted to throw it out to all the speakers to say, what should we be keeping our eyes on in the next few years as we try and achieve these targets? Especially when it comes to opportunities with regard to policy, when it comes to trying to build this mindset shift that will become a really key driver in reaching our global goals, but also what's on the ground for India and Sweden. Very broad question.
I can start very, very briefly. I think we have a young generation who is more engaged in sustainability, but sometimes less educated in this area as well. So I think it's important in a company to build in the perspective even to the office area, to make sure it's sound throughout the company, not only working with suppliers or engagement, but it needs to be a philosophy in the company. And it needs to be on the agenda constantly. I don't know if that answered your question, but that was just my thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Kamlesh, would you like to comment?
I think many things that we need to look up, watch out for essentially. But I think it's the pace of our targets versus the on-ground infrastructure, and the call goes back to the same that we need to essentially collaborate. I see this session where we are all coming and giving together learnings and best practices. I think the next step, what we should look out for, how we can come together, not just on ideas, but also on execution because economic activity is now very much interconnected, now more than ever. So one product, one waste could be a raw material for another industry, right? So I think when we talk about collaboration and a platform, maybe we could also work to go towards how each of these transition efforts can be linked to specific business line opportunities. I think that is what we need to look out for.
True, I think that's very right, and something we are discussing in the platform here, but needs to take into fruition as well. Osi, would you like to comment?
Absolutely, Sara. I mean, as Aarti mentioned about the mindset, it cannot be a chosen few within the organization who drives the sustainability initiatives. It has to be every single individual who takes it forward from there. And when we talk about individuals within the organizations and such initiatives through the chambers that happens, it will cascade down to the family members of that individual within that organization. Then the momentum will come, because it's the need of the hour is that we need to speed up the momentum. I mean, gone are those days, where we can take it at our pace and things are going to be fine for us. But because we're seeing the way the planet is reacting to all the abuse that is happening to Mother Nature, that momentum has to build up. And the fastest way to do that is this mindset getting into every single individual of the organization and consequently going to the next generations. And as Berit also said, that the new generation is very, very aware. And because they are aware, they are also conscious that, yes, but we have our responsibilities to leave what we have to leave for the next generation. So these forums definitely will help for them.
Thank you, Osi. That might be a good ending or closure to this session of saying that we do have a responsibility for the next generation, generations ahead of us, and whatever we do, we need to speed it up. So thank you so much all for listening in and being part of this. Thank you, Berit, Osi, Cecilia, Kamlesh, for sharing your experience and all the work that you are doing. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Aarti, for the partnership of doing the sustainability dialogues. And there is room, I think, to ask, continue to ask questions afterwards, to send them to Aarti or to us here in India. And we will continue these dialogues as we go forward into the new year. So Aarti, any final words from your side?
No, to say thank you so much for this discussion. It's been really good, and it provides a lot of opportunity and food on the table, as you say, Sarah, to build the roadmap next year, to have these conversations. Please do stay tuned. The dialogues do continue next year, and it's been great.
So thank you, everyone, for today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Aarti. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.